Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and we're doing our updated Ultimate Plate Armor guide. So this is going to be ranking all 11 of the full suits of plate armor that I've identified in this game. So these are suits that have at least 3 or more items named associated to go with each other. And we've standardized this as much as possible, and it is now being released after all the DLCs are out and the game is in its complete state. So there should never be a need to update or change this list. And like I said, I standardized it as much as possible, took all the variables out, and I even changed my original system to match more what the comments that I was getting on my channel suggested. So if we have a part that is missing, so let's say we're missing the sleeves or the helmet for a set because there isn't a named set, then all we do is we take the highest level one that goes with that set and we slot that in, so that way we're never sacrificing the stats just because a set doesn't have a matching helmet or something like that. So to keep things very, very consistent, first thing we're going to be doing is starting with the exact same base level, except if there is a substitution. So for example, the Brunswick set has its own mail hood because it just has a unique one. So in that instance, we'll take this mail hood out. But in all other instances, when there's not some sort of a unique substitution, this is our base layer. We've got the best ring and the best necklace in the game, the Noble's belt, the Noble's pouch. We'll have the Noble spurs equipped, and then our base layer is as high level as possible. Padded chausses, short pourpont, hauberk long, mail collar with badge, and mail hood with coat of arms. So these stats over here are the base stats for every single suit of armor we're going to be looking at today. I'm not changing out anything, like I said, unless there is a unique substitution. So with that being said, let's just dive on in and start off with number 11. And so at number 11, we have the Warhorse set. This is one that's added to the game. It was originally through Twitch drops, I believe, but now I think you can unlock it through in-game achievements. And once you've unlocked it, it will always be in your inventory. So if you start a new save, as long as it's on that same account, this will be there. So it is a good suit of armor. Keep in mind, it is missing one piece that we'll get to later, but that offers a great deal of variation in how good it actually is. And this is our first set that's going to have a unique substitution. So there is a pourpont. The gambeson layer is actually a Warhorse specific item. So that is our first suit already on the list, is the one that has a substitution. But in any case, this one is made up of the following pieces as far as unique ones go. We have the Warhorse boots, the Warhorse pourpont, the Warhorse Brigandine sleeves, the Warhorse bassinet, the Warhorse plate leg armor, and the Warhorse gauntlets. So it's an entire set except for the cuirass. We're missing cuirass. So I like to pair the Milanese cuirass with it just because stylistically it seems to fit, and it of course has terrific stats, so it makes it a very, very good suit of armor. Without this high level cuirass, it's not a very good suit of armor. So the average armor rating, or AAR, which is really the only stat we're going to be focusing on in today's video, for this suit of armor is 182.3. Now, keep in mind, that's still fairly good. Now, my scale basically goes 100 or less is light to extremely light armor, 100 to 150 for an AAR is light to medium armor, and then 150 to 200 is, well, obviously at 150 we're at medium, and then by 180, for example, or 182 like this set is, we're already into getting pretty dang heavy. That's a very solid suit of plate armor. Once we get to 200 or above, that's what I consider an unstoppable tank. That is top tier, can take a lot of damage. This one is less than that, but not by much. So the lowest rated suit on this list is still a considerably heavy suit of plate armor. Now, like I said, a lot of that comes down to the cuirass. If you didn't have a cuirass or you swapped this out for a brigandine or something like that, you'd obviously be dropping a lot. But at 182.3, it's actually a pretty solid suit of armor, and I do like the way it looks. Now, keep in mind, you lose a lot of your unique appearance if you take the Waffenrock off, because then it doesn't look special at all. But if you have that Waffenrock on, it's not too bad. This is one of those things where I would think a modder or the devs themselves would have designed a Warhorse specific cuirass for this suit of armor that has the basic appearance of this Waffenrock, just, you know, a brigandine type cuirass with white and the black spots on it, and then the Warhorse crest in the middle. But I digress. That is our 11th ranked one, and it's the lowest armor value suit where we have an entire matching suit. So that is number 11. Let's move on to number 10. Coming in at number 10, we have the Noble's Brigandine Armor, which you can see we're wearing right here. It is only made possible by the addition of the Miser's Cuirass, and of course for the other colors, it's just called the Brigandine Plate Cuirass, I think is what it's called. But there are pretty much one for every color, but this was added in with the Brushes with Death DLC. So this suit of armor is fairly good. Obviously, the AAR for this is slightly higher than the Warhorse one. The AAR for the Noble Brigandine Armor is 186.4. So once again, we've fallen within that. Still very, very solid plate armor, but not quite to the tank level. This one is made up mostly of matching pieces, so when it comes to a Brigandine edition, it can get sketchy, but typically it's just a slightly worse suit than the plate suit. So the base layer is the same. We have all the regular stuff. There's no unique substitutions there. But then we have the Noble's gauntlets for our gloves, the Noble Brigandine legs for our plate legs, the Noble laminar sleeves for our sleeves, the Miser's cuirass for our cuirass, and then the Noble's bassinet for our helmet. I just went with the one that has red because I did red for all the rest of the stuff. The only other addition we have is, of course, whenever we're using legs that do not have sabatons, then we are adding the burger shoes in, just because, you know, keeping it uniform across the board. So like I said, this one has an AR of 186.4, which is just slightly higher than the Warhorse set. Overall, I really like this one. I think the addition of the Brigandine plate cuirass was really, really cool. I was happy to see them add into the game because it adds a whole nother dimension to, you know, the people who like having a little bit more color on their armor. And of course, it is a real historical piece of armor that it's cool to see getting some representation in the game. I should also take a look at these from the outside each time we're looking at one, so it matches all fairly well. The Miser's cuirass is slightly lighter than I would have made it if I was them, the red on it, just because there are two different shades of red for the sleeves and the legs that you can get that go with this, and these are the brighter variant of both of them, and they're still a little bit darker than this Miser's cuirass. But overall, it's a fairly good looking suit of armor. I wish we had a Noble's helmet that had a lighter red aventail as well, but overall, very, very cool looking, and of course, stat-wise, pretty solid. So that is number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Coming in at number 9, we have the Saxon armor, and you could call this either the Saxon Brigandine or the Saxon Plate. Doesn't matter. It has a Brigandine cuirass, obviously, but the rest of it is plate, so overall, another one that I think looks very, very good. The AAR on the Saxon Plate Armor is 187, so we're taking another step above the last one. You can see the base layer is all the same. We once again have a set that doesn't have sabatons, so we have the burger shoes, but other than that, all the base layer has remained unchanged. And then the components that make up the set, we have 3 matching ones, so this is one that we need 2 outside pieces, but that still makes the cut. So we have the Saxon Plate legs, and I went with the variant that has the little green fringe because we're using the Saxon Brigandine, and we're using my favorite variant, which is green and gold one, and then a Saxon bassinet that we tried to match color-wise to the rest of the metal that we're using on the suit. Now, there are a couple different Saxon helmets you could use. The Saxon bassinet is the only closed-faced one, so it's the one I went with, but they have a Saxon kettle hat, and I think one other Saxon one, so there are 3 different helmet choices, I believe, that go with the suit of armor, but this one is the best one stat-wise. Then, of course, for our non-Saxon items for the Saxon Plate Armor, we have the Nuremberg gauntlets and the Nuremberg Plate sleeve, which are just the best in-class gauntlets and sleeves that you can use, so that's why they are featured here. So that is a pretty solid suit of armor appearance-wise. I think it looks really good together, and the Nuremberg stuff definitely matches well enough, so I don't have any complaints stylistically. Obviously, I would prefer if we had an entire set that was all, you know, named to go together, but it is what it is. So stat-wise, again, we're still falling within that extremely heavy plate, but not quite tank level. Looking at it from the outside, I guess one of the cool things about the Saxon armor is the bassinet being very, very unique. There is not a whole lot of bassinet variety in this game that doesn't just have a hound skull type style to it, so this one does have a much flatter look, so if you're into that, it's cool. The Brigandine itself, I think, is, like I said, a fairly good looking piece. I like how ornamental this one is. It's got a lot of flair to it, but with all that being said, overall, pretty solid looking suit of armor, and of course, stat-wise, very, very solid. So that is the one that comes in at number 9. Let's move on to our number 8 suit of armor. Coming in at the number 8 spot, we have the Brunswick Plate Armor. So this one is another one that was a lot of people probably haven't seen or don't have if they haven't, I guess, looked for it, but it was something that you have to do a series of treasure hunts for in the Trotsky Castle region. This one, I believe, was, I don't know if it was the reward for getting the gold edition or if it was a pre-order bonus, but I know it's an available DLC, so if you don't have it, you can purchase the ability to get this one, and it's another one of those ones that gives you a pretty sweet boost early out of the game. So the AAR, or average armor rating, on the Brunswick plate is 189.8, so it's higher than the other ones we've looked at, but we're not to tank level, so it definitely doesn't make you too overpowered early game, but considering the competition that you have in the Trotsky region is relatively low, it does really give you a head start. But that being said, you still also have to do a series of treasure hunts if you want to find all of to make this one up. So With all that being said, this one does have a substitution on the base layer. Like I said in the intro, we have the Brunswick's Chainmail Coif, which is actually a very interesting piece of armor to get overall because you can substitute your chainmail coif for it, and then instead of wearing that, you can have a plate helmet appearance-wise on underneath of your great helm, which is what we have here. So the unique pieces that make up this suit are, of course, as I said, the Brunswick's chainmail coif, the Brunswick Brigandine, the Brunswick gauntlets, the Brunswick's plate leg armor, Brunswick's helmet, and the Brunswick's plate sleeves. So there are no substitutions. It's one of the only full, if not the only full suit that has nothing that's not named for it in it. And of course, it is very, very fancy. Just from a stylistic point of view, obviously it's not super immersive to be wearing this for a couple reasons, one of which being the style of armor for the most part is significantly older than the contemporary stuff that you're going to find in the game, including such things as, you know, a great helm, which by the time of this would have gone out with button-up boots. And then on top, you can see we do have a decorative crest on top of the helmet, which is fairly common for tournament armor, but not really for battle armor. So overall, it's very decorative and very unique, and the components of it can be used to make some cool suits with other components, you know, if you're mixing and matching. But yeah, I like it personally. It's not my favorite, but it is very, very useful to be able to get it at the beginning of the game. So that is the Brunswick plate, which comes in at number 8. Let's move on to number 7. Coming in at number 7, we have the Kuttenberg Plate Armor, which was the new unique suit of armor that was added with the Legacy of the Forge DLC. This is something that you have to do a bunch of quests to unlock schematics for, and slowly over time you can craft each piece of this, or I should say you can have your employee craft each piece of this. And it is very fancy, and it's almost complete. So there's only one complaint I have about the suit of armor, other than the fact that the AAR is not all that impressive. The average armor rating for the Kuttenberg Plate Armor is only 190.1, placing it at number 7 overall in the ranking. I think a lot of people were expecting more out of what's probably for a lot of people going to be an end game suit of armor. You know, most people probably won't have this until very late in the game, and there's a lot of suits that are better than it. But I love the way it looks enough that ever since it's been added, it's been pretty much my go-to, even if I do cover up the cuirass with a Waffenrock from time to time. But it's a very good looking suit of armor. So because it's unique, we'll go through and read the descriptions. The Kuttenberg plate sleeves, plate arm protection from the Kuttenberg workshop of the blacksmith Henry, Kuttenberg layered cuirass, a cuirass from the Kuttenberg workshop of the blacksmith Henry. The individual plates fit together perfectly, and the chest is reinforced with an extra tempered layer. The Kuttenberg bassinet, houndskull helmet from the Kuttenberg workshop of the blacksmith Henry. This fine piece of plate armor was created by the journeyman Standa, known as the Fly. And the Kuttenberg plate leg protection from the Kuttenberg workshop of the blacksmith Henry. The only non-named item that doesn't go with this, or it's named but it's not named Kuttenberg, is the Nuremberg gauntlets. There are no gauntlets that go with the Kuttenberg set, which is very aggravating for me, but the Nuremberg gauntlets are the best in class, and of course they match it perfectly, so they look great with it. The Brunswick gauntlets also look really good with it, but of course they have significantly worse stats, which is why I went with the Nuremberg gauntlets. So like I said, 190.1 for the AAR on this set. Definitely could be a lot better, but we're still well within the heavy plate armor class, just not quite tank level. So this is what it looks like from the outside. So it's fairly unique. The helmet is just slightly different from the Noble's bassinet. It looks a lot like it. It's kind of a mash between the Nuremberg bassinet and the Noble's bassinet. They look kind of similar, but this one kind of smashes them together. I like it. Overall, the cuirass is probably the most unique feature. I mean, all of them have Henry's master mark, so you can see on the helmet, we have it right there. Down on the sleeves, we've got it right up on the shoulder. On the cuirass, it's up on the right breast. And then down on the legs, we have it here above the knee. Oh, and I should have mentioned this set also doesn't have sabatons, so we have the burger shoes on once again. Overall, it is a very good looking suit of armor, and stats are not terrible on it. I think a lot of people were disappointed that it wasn't a full set. We had to use gauntlets from a different set, and of course that the AAR is not competitive compared to a lot of the other ones. I would have preferred it be at least in the top 5. But with that being said, that's the Kuttenberg Plate Armor, which comes in at number 7. Let's move on to number 6. At number 6, we have the Milanese Brigandine Armor. So this is the Brigandine variant of the Milanese armor. This one has an AAR, or average armor rating, of 205.3. So it's the first one on this list to actually hit the tank qualifier. And of course, it's also very good looking, but we'll get to more of the stylistic elements of it once we get to the outside view. The components it's made up of, once again, our base layer remains unchanged. We get down to the unique stuff, and we have the Milanese Brigandine, and I'm using the dark variant because I wanted this one to be a dark set. Then we have the Milanese gauntlets, the Milanese plate leg armor, the Italian bassinet, and the Nuremberg plate sleeve. Considering the Milanese stuff is all from Milan, the Italian helmet is obviously intended to go with them. So we have 4 named items, or at least 4 associated items, and then 1 unnamed, or 1 unassociated, the Nuremberg ones. Overall, I think it goes together really well, and of course the stats on it are hard to argue with because it is a very good suit of armor. But appearances are, of course, where this one gets its, I guess, gold medal. It's one of my favorite looking suits of armor for a couple reasons, one of which being the Italian bassinet is my favorite helmet in the game, style-wise, and there is especially a specific nostalgic aspect of the Brigandine armor for me because I wore it so often in the first Kingdom Come game that I still really like it. And the overall dark patina sort of the metal is another thing that I quite enjoy. So the Milanese Brigandine Armor, of course, gets very high marks for style, and then stats also not bad considering it is, of course, tank quality, being at 205.3 for the AAR. So that's number 6. Let's move on to number 5. At number 5, we have Jezhek's Plate Armor, or Sir Jezhek's Plate Armor if you want to be real respectful to him. But this one is one that you can get from a knight named Sir Jezhek that you'll run into in the Kuttenberg region of the map. Essentially, you'll do a mission for him if you accept it, and you will go and challenge another knight who can be very difficult to fight to a tournament, and if you defeat him, you'll get the suit of armor, and then you can either return it to Jezhek or keep it for yourself. It is quite good, obviously taking the number 5 spot, at least if you've built it like this. The base layer is the same as usual. We do have a couple non-Jezhek items that we'll go through, but the Jezhek items are, of course, Jezhek's Brigandine, which says a cuirass bearing the coat of arms of Sir Jezhek of Halahlavi. Jezhek's plate pauldrons, part of the armor of Sir Jezhek of Halahlavi. I love saying that. And then Jezhek's gloves, part of the Sir Jezhek of Halahlavi's armor. The 2 non-Jezhek items, oh, and I should point out, never mind, the base layer isn't normal because we have Jezhek's spurs. It's the other item that makes up the set and is named to go with it. So technically, we have 4 named items with this one, even though only 3 of them are top layer armor. But the non-Jezhek items, we went the Nuremberg bassinet, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to, of course, use the highest level helmet we could, but none of the nobles' helmets had an accent that went with the suit of armor, and since Sir Jezhek clearly has a thing for yellow, we went for the Nuremberg bassinet that has the yellow accent. A noble's helmet would have a couple points better armor, but this was, style is more important. And then, of course, since there were no legs, we went with the highest level legs that we could use, which are the Noble's Plate legs, and I just matched the sheen of them to match the rest of the armor. So those are all of the items that make up this set. I probably should have said it, but I'm almost certainly going to be adding it to the screen when I edit this, but the AAR, or average armor rating of the Jezhek Plate Armor, is 208.1. So it is just a little bit better than the Milanese Brigandine, which shouldn't be too surprising considering it's a very similar suit of armor. Basically just having a unique variant of the Milanese Brigandine for the cuirass, and then, some non-Milanese items for the legs and the helmet. But overall, it's a very good-looking suit of armor, super unique. I don't like to give it back to him because of the fact that it is unique, You get that cool bird with a ring in his mouth crest. That sigil is real cool and unique. But yeah, that is Sir Jezhek's Plate Armor, which takes the number 5 spot. Let's move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4, we have the Milanese Plate Armor, which is another one of my favorites. Of course, I love that Italian bassinet, but overall the Milanese armor is very cool. The cuirass is very decorative, but we'll get to that in a bit. The Milanese Plate Armor has an AAR, or average armor rating, of 209.5, placing it, again, squarely within the tank section, but nothing that's going to blow your skirt up if you're used to, specifically going for high armor quality. Our base layer is the same as always. Once we get down to the bottom, we have 4 named pieces to go with it and 1 unnamed. So we have the Milanese gauntlets, the Milanese plate leg armor, the Italian bassinet, and the Milanese cuirass. Those all are obviously for the same suit of armor. Then, of course, we have the Nuremberg plate sleeves, and since I went with a plain, unadorned, shiny silver version of them, I stuck with the same for the Nuremberg plate sleeves. So, again, overall, definitely a suit of armor that looked really good together. Specific points that I like about Milanese armor are limited to just A, the Italian bassinet's my favorite helmet in the game, and B, the Milanese cuirass does look cool. It's got that decorative fluting on it, so I always like integrating that when I can into a suit of armor for various reasons, one of which being it is a very good piece of armor, but, the other one is just style. So the Milanese Plate Armor, one of my favorites, takes the number 4 spot overall. Let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Coming in at number 3, we have the Magdeburg Plate Armor with an AAR, or average armor rating, of 209.8, so just slightly better than the Milanese armor. And again, this is one that almost didn't make it because they have the helmet named to not go with it. So we have the items that make this one up being the Magdeburg cuirass and the Magdeburg plate arms. None of the other ones are specifically named to go with it, but that being said, I think the Houndskull bassinet is very obviously designed to go with the suit of armor. A, because stylistically speaking, the Houndskull was very popular in the Magdeburg area and fits well within the rest of the historical armor design as the rest of the set. But I mean, you can be the judge of that if you don't think it's fair to include it, but I definitely think it is, and I think the Houndskull obviously goes with the Magdeburg armor. Then if we assume that the Houndskull and the Magdeburg plate arms and cuirass go together, that, satisfies our 3-piece requirement, and then the Noble's plate legs and the Nuremberg gauntlets round out the rest of the suit. And of course, I tried to match it because one of the nice things about the Magdeburg suit of armor is that the plate arms are very decorative. They're the most decorative plate arms in the game, except for possibly the Kuttenberg variant. But then our Noble's plate legs and Nuremberg gauntlets, we were able to do some that really matched and made the whole suit pop extremely well. So stat-wise, like I said, at 209.8, we're very obviously a tank. And then stylistically speaking, it's also a very good-looking suit of armor. Once again, we have a cuirass that's very distinct. It's possibly not as distinct as the Kuttenberg would be, but it has a very similar design, coming up to a very angular upper breast section for it, which definitely looks very good. And then again, like I said, those sleeves are very, very unique. We have probably the most comprehensive coverage of any plate sleeves in the game, and we have the cool decorative, gold double flower on the elbow joint, which is very, very cool. So overall, great looking suit of armor, and stat-wise, like I said, phenomenal, obviously, because it takes the number 3 spot. So that's number 3. Let's move on to number 2. Our runner-up at number 2 is the Noble Plate Armor. So this one has an AAR, or average armor rating, of 213.2, making it, obviously, based on the fact that it took the number 2 spot, the second best one that we can get. So this one, again, stylistically, we'll get to that, but oh boy, does it look good. But this one has the same base layer as all the rest of them. The rest of it is fairly straightforward. We have 3 named pieces, so we match it there. We have the Noble Cuirass, which there's a bunch of variants to that, but, obviously we only need one of them. The Noble Bassinet, or Noble's Bassinet, Noble's Plate Legs, and we'll use the dark variant again because we're color matching here. And then there are Noble's Brigandine gloves and Noble's Brigandine sleeves, but we didn't want to use Brigandine. This one is going to be a full plate suit, so since we already had satisfied our 3-piece need, we have the Nuremberg gauntlets and Nuremberg plate sleeves because A, they obviously stylistically match very well, and B, are the best stat-wise. So, like I said, AAR on this one is 213.2. I wanted to save the stylistic discussions until we got to the outside because boy, does this one look fancy. I guess if I was going to have a complaint, it would be the fact that the helmet that goes best with this cuirass has this blue aventail, and then our cuirass has these green accents. I would rather have it have blue, but I just love how the dark variant of the Noble armor looks. It matches so well. And of course, we were able to get ornamentation on every single piece. So the helmet has our gold trim, the cuirass obviously does, our sleeves do, and then of course our plate legs with the sabatons. Oh, and so do the gloves. So overall, it's extremely decorative, and I think other than, like I said, that one little color coordination problem, I don't have any other issues with it. It is a very, very good looking suit of armor. So that's number 2, the Noble Plate Armor. Let's move on to our best suit of armor in the game at number 1. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have the Nuremberg Plate Armor, which just barely beats out the Noble's Plate Armor. The Nuremberg Plate Armor has an AAR, or average armor rating, of 213.3, so it is, like I said, just barely better than it. But overall, boy, is it a good suit of armor. So this one, the base layer is the same as always, and the suit itself is made up of 3 matching pieces that are named to go together: the Nuremberg Bassinet, the Nuremberg Gauntlets, and the Nuremberg Plate Sleeves. Then for the cuirass, traditionally, what I really like to do with this suit of armor, and have done in past videos where I've shown Nuremberg armor, is I'll use the Kuttenberg, because obviously, stylistically speaking, it looks really good with the set, and of course, regionally manufactured, it also matches from a historical point of view. That being said, it's a bit anachronistic for this time period, and the cuirass with folds also matches the suit of armor very, very well. It's got the exact same type of lines for it, so I believe the cuirass with folds is designed to go with the Nuremberg armor. I've since changed my stance on that one. I used to say it was the Kuttenberg, now I say it's the cuirass with folds. That being said, the Kuttenberg also looks really good with the suit of armor. But I went with the cuirass with folds, and then since we don't have any other plate legs, we don't have Nuremberg plate legs, I went with the Noble's plate legs. And so overall, I think the suit of armor looks really, really good, and we'll talk about that more when we get on the outside, but stat-wise, it's the best one in the game, at least as far as a matching suit of armor goes. So appearances on this one, I decided to make yellow the accent color, just because I don't think, well, other than Jezhek's, we didn't really have a whole lot of yellow going on. Plus, it allows us to really key into that gold, and my favorite of the Nuremberg helmet variations is this one with the yellow and the chainmail for the aventail. So overall, style-wise, again, it looks really, really good, but that's because the Nuremberg pieces are all really good-looking pieces. And you could do lots of different variants. We could do a dark variant, a very light silver variant, we could do plain unadorned, but personally for me, I like the slightly darker silver with the gold accents. That's my probably favorite color combination, and so that's why we went with it here. So that is number 1, the Nuremberg Plate Armor. Like I said 213.3 for the AAR. We can do better than that if we mix and match, and maybe I'll do an updated video for that, since why not? I can do whatever I want. But yeah, that is our top 11 suits of complete armor. That's all 11 that I'm aware of in the game. I don't know of any other suits that have at least 3 named pieces that go together. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.